Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Impact Talk for today. We have Mr. George Aikara, who's the Chief Executive Officer of United Way Mumbai. Welcome, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today. Without any further ado, I'll go ahead and ask you the first question that I have for you. What are the various themes United Way Mumbai as an organization covers within the social impact space?
First of all, thank you, Nikon. My pleasure to be here. So as an organization, United Way Mumbai is in the entire development space. So we typically classify our work. As you know, the development sector is fairly large, complex. People tend to paint the social sector with one, but there are so many verticals within the sector as well. So we classify our work under 5 broad verticals. That is education, health, livelihood and income, environment and social inclusion, and public safety. Under each of them, we classify them under interventions because if we say education is fairly vast and large and complex by itself. So there could be remedial education, scholarships, it could be school adoption, it could be STEM learning, teacher training. All of this comes under education, so we classify them under interventions. So all these 5 cause categories have 54 different types of intervention areas. And primarily our work is in program design and implementation. So depending on what donor budgets, geographies and intent is, we shape impactful design, program design to these objectives in the most impactful manner. So in a nutshell, that's what we do. We help companies and individuals get the maximum return on their social and philanthropic investments. And that is what my organization is set up to do.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being so comprehensive about it. That leads me on to my next question would be, could you specifically walk us through some of the initiatives and programs that United Way Mumbai takes within the development space?
Sure. So because we primarily work on CSR mandates of various companies, we work with over 150 companies on their CSR programs and designs. In a year, we typically have more than 300 projects across the country on different thematic areas. But there are a few key projects which, irrespective of the funds available for it, there's a commitment of the organization towards in each of these 5 focus areas that I mentioned. Various companies supported in different geographies. So we have a sizable under education. We work a lot with Anganwadis, and early childhood education comes under Project Poshan. There's also Project Ankur, which works with refurbishment of Anganwadis, teacher training, improving outcomes of education. We have Let's Read as a program, which is bringing the joy of reading to children. Under public safety, we have road safety is a big topic with us. We work extensively in this area. We work on, it's a project called Jeevan Doot, which is first responder to emergencies that happen, training public students, college youths, community stakeholders in providing first aid to accident victims. We are big in the sanitation space. We have Suvidha toilets, which are the world-class public toilet facilities, including laundromat and grey water recycling that in the slums of the country. We work on environment, urban reforestation, mission mangroves, the mangrove cover renovation. We extensively work in the watershed management, which is a program called Jal Sanjeevani. And again, so in each area, there is a lot of work. One of the big programs is Saksham, which works with women entrepreneurship, financial inclusion, and starting of helping women start their own businesses. So there are a lot of programs. I could speak for hours on each one of them. But yes, each of these have been designed in different geographies that can be scaled, apart from 300 other projects that we do. Like I said, the entire social space is an area that we are working in.
Thank you, sir. I think, yes, it sometimes can get very difficult within a stipulated span of time to talk about all the programs and really elaborate on that. But I would like to know that in general, how would you classify that? How has COVID-19 and the occurrence of COVID-19 changed the development domain? I know this might be a very broad question in its own self, but COVID has affected the entire social sector space in different ways. What would you say are some of your learnings, or how you look at it affecting the social development space?
So you're right, Nikon, in the COVID-19 made us all reinvent how community programs can be delivered in a highly constrained environment in which it was one tragedy after the other, right? The lockdown is completely upended the way we conduct, do manage our programs. But as United Way Mumbai, we scaled up massively during the COVID pandemic. The primary reason is that we've been working in disasters throughout. For the past 20 years, we have responded to every disaster in the country. And a typical disaster follows three broad stages. That is the immediate need or relief that has to be that phase where emergency, you step in and you scale up in a certain way. Then there is the midterm rehabilitation period that follows any disaster, where it's more on restoration of what used to be. And then there's the long-term rebuild process, which is to build back communities stronger, more resilient. COVID was a disaster, except that it was the mega disaster. It was not a specific geography, it was not a specific socioeconomic class, it was across the country, across all categories. So it was a crisis of the highest order, and we stayed in that immediate relief period for more than 1.5 years, which is very unusual. So we planned for it, we worked for it. It was each thing, we moved very quickly over it. We mobilized a lot of funds, but it was one thing after the other. And there were all these smaller tertiary causes that were also developing. So the difficulty in any disaster is priority. What is number one priority? Where do you concentrate all your effort? How do you ensure there's no duplication of effort when there are multiple people trying to address people doing the same thing or trying to fill the correct need? So working in, we're a collaborative organization. We work closely with the government, other non-profits, community stakeholders to find and fill those needs. So COVID as an experience for us as an organization has been incredible learning curve. We've grown massively because we were almost in every part of that, from providing ration kits to livelihood support to medical equipment. We've worked with 180 public hospitals in providing them equipment and needs across the country. We've set up ICU units. We've worked with infection prevention control protocols in hospitals. We worked on a lot of livelihood generation programs, especially in our rural countryside, because there was a whole migrant worker crisis that happened. We assisted busloads and truckloads of people to get back home, and after they have come back to their villages, how do we get employment for them? Because a village can only hold as many people productively. Education outcomes, the loss of education that was hitting all the children, the digital divide issue. So it was just one crisis of the other, and we just kept trying to keep up and pace with each one of them. Despite it all, it's just a drop in the face of the larger. We also helped and supported a lot of other non-profits for whom adaptation was very, very difficult. So we've supported nearly 100 plus other NGOs with nearly between 50 to 80 crores of funds and helping them get over their programmatic gap that was happening. So yes, COVID reinvented everything for us as a team. We had to completely figure out a new way of delivering community programs. But yeah, as an organization, we are stronger for it. And hopefully we adapted a lot of that into our programs going forward.
So, sir, you talked about how United Way Mumbai scaled up during COVID. Of course, COVID affected every part of the world and beyond geographies. But at the same time, if we don't restrict ourselves to COVID alone, what would you say are some of the learnings and some of the challenges that United Way Mumbai has had to go through as an organization?
So not just in COVID or otherwise, we are an organization that is built and whose purpose is to serve our communities in greatest need. So whenever there is, and need is everywhere, as in different levels, there are people who are underserved, there are groups and communities which are excluded, they are the most vulnerable of our society. At no point do we ever lose sight that when the community's need is when we are required to be at our best, we have to double our efforts. So when COVID happened and programs got disrupted, more than the exact the revenues or the monies or the program getting disrupted, it was the sheer realization that our communities are in greatest need than ever before in multiple. So it required each one of us to to truly extend ourselves. And I think, but that is just at our end. More than us, it is the when there is such a this magnitude of need in the community, there's also the huge, that's where it restores hope in humanity. Also huge upswelling of people wanting to support companies, individuals. So many companies of our corporate partners set up fundraisers for helping out people in distress. We mobilized around 200 crores of funding just last year, the second wave. All of those funding comes from donors who truly want to help. And our job in all of this is to find and fashion a way in which those monies are used for the maximum impact possible. All learning from our mistakes and understanding from needs in the ground. So there's always this other side. When there is a disaster, we know this. Those are the times when the best of humanity also comes out. So all companies, all individuals, all other organizations working in very highly resource constrained manner, but able, because the passion is so strong to help and serve, and since that is our ethos as well. Adversity always tends to bring out the best in all of us, and it was no different for us as well. We knew obviously we had to relearn everything. As an organization, suddenly we got into procurement, which is of medical equipment, of which we had no competence. We have a couple of doctors in our team who were assisting with the it's a very technical thing. People were buying, a lot of well-meaning people were buying ventilators or creating their own and oxygen cylinders, etc. But they are not medical grade. When people's lives are, hospitals can only work in a certain specification that the staff is trained for. So any ventilator will not do. It has to be a certain quality. Or a lot of that. So we got into procurement of highly technical things. We had a lot of help. But yeah, as an organization, I think our learning has always been the greater the adversity, the greater our need to step in.
So, sir, you also talked about flexibility. I mean, because it's so interesting how you put it that as an organization, United Way Mumbai also became adaptable to the circumstances that they were faced with. I was also wondering if you can highlight a little bit about, irrespective of COVID, if you had to think before COVID, which is almost so difficult for us to do, but if you had to think before COVID, what would you say, or how would you highlight some of the monumental challenges that United Way has faced?
So as an organization, we try to band ourselves around these four words behind me, which is social impact, done right. Now, social impact is the purpose, the reason of our existence, the why of why we even are in this, which is to serve our communities. The done right part is the complicated part. The done right is the expertise, the data, the evidence, the ethos that we bring. Because social impact is easy. If I just smile at somebody, an act of kindness, that's also social impact, right? But the depth of impact, it is a highly technical, complicated, difficult. The done right part requires measurement, the scientific approach, evidence-based data, and different methodologies require some testing as to what works, and what works in one community may not work in a self-help group in, say, Kurnool is very different from a self-help group in Wayanad. So it is adapted to the local context. So the biggest challenges in our space as an organization has always been in trying to determine the methodology or the program design that we choose for any intervention is the best one, or does it adhere to the done right part of our statement. And because it is a subjective thing, and we take our responsibility as stewards of philanthropic capital very seriously. It's ultimately it is money of a donor, and we are the stewards, and that is the assurance, that is the whole reason why somebody would work with United Way Mumbai. And it's a continuous challenge. It depends a lot on the expertise of the team, the models that we work with, communities. So that has always been a challenge. It is never our challenge has not been as much generating revenues or finding the right set of partners. It has always been a program design. And COVID again made this much more difficult. But even without COVID, even today, there is no COVID. I think 90% of our effort goes into figuring out the done right part. What we do, and nothing is done from a theory perspective. If I have time, I just want to illustrate a simple example. In a classroom, you went to a class, I went to in your classroom. Program design is essentially the curriculum, the teachers, which was the same for all the students in your class. Everybody got the same input because that was program design. This is how the classes would be, but the outcomes are different, right? There's some children who are doing better, some children who are not. In every classroom, anywhere. So program design is only part of it. The other part is actual community need and requirement, what each child needed or required to succeed or be at the highest level. Why are there children who are at the bottom of the learning outcome? And we know the solution. It needs individual attention, customized, tailorized solution for each child. A general application will not do. But that's expensive, right? So that you'll have to invest a lot of time, resource, which you may not have. So in a scenario like that, how do you solve for an outcome which is acceptable from an outcome perspective, but does not leave the most vulnerable of the child behind? So that's just to give you an illustration of the difficulties involved with program design. Anything, and you can take any. So we design, and then we adapt and adjust tactically as the program evolves with the community's need and requirement at an individual level. And then we have to take the really difficult decisions of deciding what is priority, which are the ones which make the maximum outcome, which work for the most. So those are always have been for the biggest challenge. And of course, because budgets. With unlimited budgets, of course, you can do all of this. You can do it at an individual level. You can do M&E, you can do the follow-up, etc. But we are always working in a resource-constrained environment. So we have to make do with good enough, oftentimes, when our stated objective is the best possible. So yes, as a challenge, I still, rather than specific things, I would list that as the challenges of United Way Mumbai, because that's what we do for our partners, and that's where the difficulty is.
Thank you, sir. I think that was so beautifully put by you. I think with good work comes greater responsibilities, and hence that is always a part of the work that we keep doing. Sir, I'm here with my final question for you, which is what is the vision of the organization according to you? And maybe you can also talk about as an organization as a whole, what is the vision for the next 5 years?
So as visions go, I don't think we will change from social impact done right. It is just the scale and ambition of what all we want to be able to achieve. We've gone past the number of beneficiary vanity metrics. It is quality of intervention. This is the depth of intervention that we are truly interested in. To be truly, whatever it may be, wherever we have intervened, it has made a significant difference. We're very, very mindful of the responsibility of that we carry on our donors funds. It's the same, and my team as well, we are all encouraged to volunteer also and to donate ourselves, so we know the value of that money and the responsibility that comes in, and what our premise is in delivering that. As an organization, over the next 5 years, I see ourselves deepening our knowledge, understanding, expertise, work ethics, geographies, cause categories that we can, expanding the number of people we can help and serve in our communities. More importantly, deepening our depth of impact. When we collate it in our annual reports, and these are, like I mentioned, the 300 programs, the numbers are huge. It's like 2 crore people we have reached one way or the other, but bringing more emphasis on the quality. So I see us being an organization, or at least I wish us to be an organization that is seen as a serious organization in this space. A lot of people have this oftentimes a feeling that social impact can be done by anybody, that it could be, it's a hobby, or it's easy. It is not. It is the moment you try and getting into a social issue, you realize how complex these issues are, how interlinked with multiple issues each one is, and to solve for one, how many other things or how many threads get pulled in that. So as an organization, that and the amount of training that is needed, there is a science, there is a knowledge, um, and the sector by and large does incredible amount of work with under the most resource constrained environment. And my larger ambition as an organization is to strengthen the sector beyond United Way Mumbai. Because when we say social impact done right, it means it's not just about one organization. It is about who and where can and create the largest impact. And that might be another organization. So in many ways and forms, we try and help other organizations. We are associated with 600 other NGOs who we either work directly or indirectly with throughout the year, building their capacities, our learnings, transferring into them, cross collaborations. In the process, building a strong, vibrant civil society, and strengthening the resilience of these organizations as well, because they're running on passion, but very little resources. And they're doing incredible work without the teams or the people or the resources they need to do it. So also channelizing and bringing funds, attention, awareness to the sector, bringing respect to all the people in the sector who are working so hard on behalf of the communities, changing public perception of an NGO. Let's face it, there is a lot of cynicism about NGOs and the work people do, and people still ask, "Oh, you get a salary." A lot of perception issues that are there. So working on all of that. So the ambition is very large, Nikon, and as an organization, I feel it is our responsibility to do that as well. As long as we adhere to truly achieving impact in its truest form for the people who need it the most. Organizationally, anybody in a position to help or wanting to help should be strengthened. So I know it's a little preachy, but at least that is the ambition.
No, absolutely, sir. It was great to hear the preachy aspect of things as well. But I honestly believe it was not preachy. And the fact is, I think visions are always big. And if we are not aiming big, then what are we even doing? So thank you for that. I think that was a wonderful interview. And thank you so much for giving us the time.
My pleasure, Nikon. Thank you so much to you, CSR Box, for having me here.